No matter how hard you try, you can't always be at the top of your game.
Wilson dancing out of the pocket and throws it away. And once again, with boos raining down.
Even the best players endure some ups and downs. Today, here are 5 NFL players who are poised to bounce back in 2023 and 5 who will decline. And a big shout out to Atticus Browning for suggesting this video. Bounce back, Russell Wilson. The first year of the Wilson era in Denver was a complete disaster, no doubt about that. But let's not forget about Murphy's Law here, because everything that could go wrong practically went wrong for the Broncos in 2022. Nathaniel Hackett wasn't cut out for the head coaching job. Standout receiver Tim Patrick missed the entire year recovering from a torn ACL. And rising star running back Javonte Williams played 4 games before suffering a season-ending knee injury. Oh, and the offensive line was an absolute train wreck, allowing a league-high 63 sacks. Wilson was on the receiving end of 55 of them. Well, there is just no chance Wilson and the Denver offense will be that bad again. Getting Patrick back to help Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton should make the passing game that much better. The O-line picked up 2 new starters in Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, both of whom should be upgrades over the men they're replacing. And then, of course, there's new head coach Sean Payton, an offensive wizard and future Hall of Famer who will unquestionably restore confidence in the once proud franchise. Maybe the Broncos won't make the jump to Super Bowl contender, but Wilson is going to at least play much more like the Pro Bowl version of himself, as opposed to the guy we saw in 2022. That much is obvious. Decline Kirk Cousins. In terms of actual stats, 2022 wasn't Cousins' best season. But considering his Minnesota Vikings won 13 games and the NFC North Division crown, we'd chalk 2022 up as the most successful year of his career up to this point. Cousins completed 65.9% of pass attempts for 4,547 yards and 29 touchdowns against 14 picks. His main go-to guy, Justin Jefferson, led the NFL with 1,809 receiving yards. Put simply, however, the law of averages tells us that Cousins and the Vikings as a whole stand to regress in 2023. Did you know that Cousins had 8 game-winning drives in 2022 alone? Yeah, he's not doing that again. Oh, and the Vikings went 11-0 in one-score games during the regular season. Those 11 wins in one-possession games marked an NFL record. So there was just no way Cousins and the Vikings get that lucky again. Also, number 2 wideout Adam Thielen was let go in a cap-saving move, taking away one valuable weapon from Cousins. Many's NFC North Division foes, the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions, should be more competitive after proactive off-seasons. Cousins should put up solid stats once again. But based on what we've seen through the first 11 seasons of his career, well, it's safe to assume that regression is coming Kirk's way in 2023. Bounce back, Aaron Rodgers. The New York Jets will give Aaron Rodgers all the tools to succeed in 2023, something the Green Bay Packers wouldn't do during his final years with the team. Rodgers is going to a Jets team loaded with weapons, including 2022 Offensive Rookie of the Year Garrett Wilson, star running back Breece Hall, old friend Alan Lazard, plus Corey Davis and speedster Mecole Hardman. If the Jets could win 7 games with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco, well, there's no telling how much Rodgers will move the needle. Green Bay didn't give him enough pass-catching help to succeed in 2022, and the defense once again let A-Rod down far too often. He won't have to worry about that anymore, though. The Jets had the number 4 ranked defense in terms of both yards and points allowed last year. More stops and forced punts equals more drives for Rodgers. So, no, it's not a stretch to say that 2023 could be another MVP caliber year for the future Hall of Famer. Decline Jesse Bates III. The Atlanta Falcons signed the former Cincinnati Bengals star to a mammoth 4-year contract worth $64.02 million. What can we say? That is a whole lot of dough for a safety with only 1 great season on his resume. But the Falcons, loaded with cap space, decided that the potential rewards on the Wake Forest product outweigh the risks. Bates' best season came in 2020 when he racked up 3 interceptions and 12 pass defenses. Pro Football Focus graded him at an impressive 90.1 on the year, but Bates really hasn't been the same ever since. His 2021 PFF grade dropped all the way down to 56.9, 20.1, and per Pro Football Reference, Bates allowed an 80% completion percentage and yielded a 122.0 passer rating when targeted in 2021. Bates was slightly better in 2022, rating at 76.8, but he also allowed 4 touchdowns in coverage per PFR. Yes, he makes plays on the ball, but Bates isn't really that shutdown guy in coverage that you saw for much of 2020. He fit well in Lou Anarumo's defensive schemes in Cincy. Now Bates joins an Atlanta defense that has, quite frankly, been one of football's worst for the better part of the last decade. Who's to think Bates will suddenly regain his 2020 superstar-like form on a new team with a worse defense with far less talent around him? Yeah, I'm not buying it. Bounce back, Marshawn Lattimore. The New Orleans Saints star cornerback missed 10 games last season dealing with an abdomen injury. It's not a stretch to say that if he were healthy all year long, the Saints would have won the NFC South Division title. But even in the 7 games he suited up for, Lattimore rarely looked like the lockdown Pro Bowl corner we've watched since 2017. His 2022 PFF grade was a mere 64.7, which placed him in their above-average grading key. Well, the Saints as a whole were hit hard by injuries last season, but if Lattimore stays healthy, go ahead and watch him take off again in 2023. The Saints have the second easiest strength of schedule for 2023. They play in football's worst division and don't need to worry about Tom Brady anymore. With weaker competition, Lattimore could be in for a monster season. Decline. Khalil Mack. He is a household name, but Mack truly hasn't been an all-world pass rusher for a few years now. Given his age and recent production, we're inclined to believe that he is well on the decline. Mack had 8 sacks in 17 games for the Los Angeles Chargers last season. Not awful numbers, but we're talking about a former Defensive Player of the Year with 4 seasons of double-digit sacks on his resume. Pro Football Reference had Mack down for a mere 18 quarterback pressures in 2022. For context, he had 9 pressures in just 7 games the year prior. Considering the presence of Joey Bosa, Mack should be winning his more favorable matchups. And for those who don't think stats tell the story, well, consider that PFF consistently had Mack graded in the mid-80s to the early 90s from 2014 to 2020. His number has been 73.0 or lower in each of the last 2 years, however. So, yes, the trend shows that Mack is on the decline and no longer a superstar. And that notion should only be reinforced in 2023. Bounce back, Kyle Pitts. The number 4 selection of the 2021 NFL Draft more than lived up to expectations as a rookie, recording 68 receptions for 1,026 yards and a touchdown. But Pitts became a victim of the well-documented sophomore slump in the first half of 2022, and then an unfortunate season-ending MCL tear kept him on the sidelines for the final 6 games. In 10 contests, Pitts recorded only 28 catches for 356 yards and 2 touchdowns. He went from averaging 60.4 yards per game in 2021 to a mere 35.6 in 2022. Well, there's just no way a man of his talents can disappoint that much again. And given Drake London's superb rookie year, opposing defenses may want to pay more attention to him next season. That should open the door for Pitts to draw more winnable one-on-one matchups down the field. We would be shocked if Pitts didn't reemerge as a 1,000-yard Pro Bowl tight end. There is just too much talent for him to have another down year. Decline, Mike Evans. It's admittedly risky placing Evans on here. 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons to open a career is no joke after all. But let's not forget that even with Tom Brady, Evans barely cracked the 1,000-yard mark in 2020 and 2021. And the renowned red zone artist who racked up 27 touchdowns from 2020 to 2021 had just 6 last year. And now with Brady retired, who's going to consistently feed Evans the ball? Baker Mayfield? Kyle Trask? Look, no offense, but both are major downgrades from the GOAT. Just saying. Right now, the Bucs look like they could very well be the worst team in the NFC South. Evans will be drawing some tough cornerback matchups against guys like Marshawn Lattimore, J.C. Horn, and A.J. Terrell. It just feels like everything is adding up to a letdown year for Evans. Bounce back, Derek Carr. Carr's final season with the Las Vegas Raiders can only be chalked up as a disappointment. Even the arrival of Davante Adams couldn't help Carr build off a stellar 2021 season that saw the Raiders reach the postseason for just the second time since 2003. The Raiders benched Carr for their final 2 games of 2022 and worked on a potential trade. Unable to find a team in which Carr would waive his no-trade clause for, the 4-time Pro Bowler was released. The QB-needy Saints signed Carr to a 4-year deal worth $150 million, reuniting him with Dennis Allen. And in so many ways, this deal feels like a huge win for both sides. In 15 games, Carr completed just 60.8% of pass attempts for 3,522 yards and 24 touchdowns against 14 picks, which tied a career high. That was not typical Derek Carr, and his career production suggests it was an off year instead of a sign of what's to come. Also, Carr is absolutely loaded with weaponry in New Orleans. Chris Olave was a star in year 1. Michael Thomas could be a difference maker if he just stays healthy. Alvin Kamara and newcomer Jamal Williams might be the league's best backfield duo, and tight end Juwan Johnson is a potential breakout candidate after recording 7 touchdowns last season. Not to mention, the Saints have long had one of football's best offensive lines. Meanwhile, the Raiders' O-line was among the league's worst last year. The Raiders consistently fielded a bottom 10 defense during Carr's career. New Orleans, on the other hand, had the 5th best yardage defense and the number 9 scoring D in 2022. And, as previously mentioned, New Orleans has the 2nd weakest strength of schedule. They should pile up the W's in a laughable NFC South. Yes, indeed, it is all adding up to an epic comeback year for Derek Carr. Decline Josh Jacobs. The Raiders surely regret not picking up the 5th-year option on Jacobs' rookie deal. All the Alabama product did was lead the NFL in rushing with 1,653 yards to go along with 12 rushing touchdowns. Jacobs also hauled in 53 receptions for a career-high 400 receiving yards. But, with all due respect to Jacobs, there's just no way he'll put together that kind of stat line again. Before last year, his career high in rushing yards was 1,150. And no offense to Jimmy Garoppolo, but he simply isn't as good of a pocket passer as Carr is. Opposing defenses had to mostly account for the Carr-led passing game last year, but with Garoppolo, they'll prioritize stacking the box and daring Jimmy G to beat them. Jacobs should still be a 1,000-yard rusher, but he's not going to come close to 1,600 yards again. And he's not going to surpass 2,000 yards from scrimmage either. Regression seems like a far-gone conclusion for the Raiders' workhorse back in 2023. But which other NFL players are poised to bounce back in 2023? And which ones do you think will decline? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.